I mentioned them the other day when we got started on the family. And that was the first family that God chose from Abraham, those 12 tribes. Well, I couldn't help but think about them this week, those 10 boys. It was Benjamin was the little one, and then next was Joseph. And Joseph was the one that they had sold to the Egyptians. Let me find my place. I would have liked to have been around when this part of that story happened. Those 10 sold Joseph to the Midianites, and Joseph was gone Joseph stayed in prison for 13 years, and then they'd already had the famine 2 years, so that was a period of something like 15 years in there. That those 10 boys was awful. They didn't know how to discipline. They wouldn't listen to Daddy. They had done Joseph awful. They had done, when you read the story of those fellows, it's awful. But God loved them, and God had a plan and a purpose for them. And at the end of that story, we learn when those fellas got on track. And let me tell you when it was. Okay, this is all in Genesis 45. When they went, it had been 2 years famine, and their dad sent them down into Egypt. That's where Joseph was. And Joseph recognized them, and they didn't recognize Joseph at first. And so in Genesis 41 and 45 and 1, Joseph made known to them who he was. Now, these guys, I'm telling you what, they were just awful. And sometimes you just think, Lord, why in the world did you choose that family? But God had a purpose and a plan for this family that he loved very, very much. So I like it when I see these brothers get back on track. And Genesis 45:1 says, Then Joseph could no longer control himself before all his attendants, and he cried out, Have everyone leave my presence. And so there was no one with Joseph when he made himself known to the brothers. And he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard it, and Pharaoh's household heard about it. And Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph. Is my father still living? But his brothers were not able to answer him because they were terrified at his presence. Now, up until now, you don't see anything in those 10 fellows' lives. You don't see anything that indicates that they even know God. But God is getting their attention. And this is how he goes about doing it. Joseph says, I am Joseph. Can you just imagine for just a little while what these fellas must have felt and thought? I am just sure that their hearts jumped into their mouths. And they thought, what? Oh, that had been 15 years ago. Do you think they had ever forgotten that? I don't think they ever forgot. I think those 15 years they struggled with what they had done with Joseph. Simply because Dad probably wouldn't let them forget. Because Dad mourned and mourned and mourned for Joseph, and probably held on to that bloody coat and wept. And poor little Benjamin, too young to understand, and he probably just stood there and, Dad, what's the matter? Why? It's been a long time ago, Daddy. Have you not gotten over that yet? And Daddy said he'd never get over that. And so here was these boys, terrified at his presence. So for lack of time, I'm going to have to skip over. But in chapter 46, in chapter 46, verse 27 and 46, this is how many went down into Egypt. Let's see. All those who went down to Egypt with Jacob, those who were his direct descendants, not counting his sons' wives, numbered 66 persons with the 2 sons who had been born to Joseph in Egypt. He's counting them. The family of Jacob, the members of Jacob's family, which went down to Egypt, were 70. That's how many went down. But now, and I've got a little bit ahead of myself, because in chapter 50, Joseph forgives them. But when they get, where did? Anyway, I would have liked to have been a fly on the wall when they go back and they tell their dad that Joseph is alive. Can you just imagine what that was like that day? Joseph is alive after all these years. Joseph is down in Egypt, and he has sent for you. And I'm sure they had to say, Dad, we lied to you. We killed a goat and put the blood on Joseph's coat. We really sold Joseph to the Midianites. Those fellas had to confess a lot of stuff. I would love to have been there. I would have loved to have seen this. I bet it was a lot of hugging and kissing, and I'm sorry. I bet it was. Oh, I'm sorry, Dad. I'm sorry, Dad, we put you through all of this. God was beginning to get a hold of their attention when they had to go back and confess what they had done. Do you know that's one of the best ways for us to stay on track? Just confess, God, I'm sorry. Do you have to tell him that often? Oh, I have to. I just have to say that often. Lord, I'm sorry for even thinking those thoughts. I'm sorry. Well, anyway, here when they all got to Egypt, girls, I love reading about this and how God takes care of his people. That just lets me know what he's going to do for us. In chapter 50 is where they